if you haven't figured it out, there is a request to speak button. And as we move forward, if there are things that you wish to add to this conversation, we're happy to be part of that. Apologize for the late start tonight. As TC mentioned, I have just moved into a new house, and despite my best efforts in 4 hours of work, the internet is not fully running yet. But such is the way of things. That said, the new house is nice and has room for things like lots of people to come over and have afters here when we're adjacent to it. There's plenty of room. Moving right along, looks like we still have a couple of people joining us. Maybe we give them just another minute or two.
Matt, I think we can probably get started. Just I posted a note about people raising their hands in the LARP general chat, so hopefully people notice that if they're wanting to speak and come late.
Well, all right then. Let's kick this off. I hope that everyone has had a relatively uneventful winter and is doing well. We can check in and have a chit chat later, but we have had a relatively busy winter in the sense that since our last event, we've made sure that we've gotten a new schedule up, which everyone has had a chance to look at. If you haven't, it's up on the website. It's also listed in the events section of the Discord. We've worked on finalizing some details about the rulebook, mostly just little tweaks and corrections or places where something didn't make it into the book and we hadn't fully fleshed it out yet. We're started looking for some new staff and have gotten a few people who are going to be joining us and helping us out. But to kick things off, let's start with the rule book. Our goal as we put this game together was to know that there was stability in this game and that we weren't going to be constantly dealing with changes in the rules. We wanted things to be stable and people to be able to learn the rules and move forward and enjoy the game. But we also wanted the players to know that over time the game is going to evolve. And to that end, we have established that we want to have a essentially 2-year rolling rules cycle. And I invite any of the other owners to hop in on this, but in brief, we launched last season with the rules with the intention of being able to say nothing is changing for 2 years. And obviously, the best laid plans come to fruition. But we did find that there was a need for a few small things, and we have made those changes and posted the updated rulebook. If you've already had a chance to take a look at it, if there are questions or concerns about it, we're obviously happy to address, where we've made changes, why certain changes were made. We are always, happy to have those discussions. As we've said many times in the past, however, you know, the answer is most often because we feel it's better for the game, even if it breaks the super great, strategy that you've developed. We're not here to pick on anyone in particular, but we want, the all of our players to enjoy things. So when we find something that is, horrendously game breaking, obviously we're not going to leave it in the game just because we've said we're not going to change things for 2 years.
Yeah, it's more of a
Yeah.
goal, right?
Yeah. Where we have made changes at the end of this season, we hope we aren't going to have to make any significant changes moving forward. But as people continue to enjoy the game and we see more interactions and people have a chance to work through things, should other things arise, we obviously will take steps to address them. However, given that if there is nothing that happens in that vein that we have to change, we are hoping to make it through this entire season without any major changes to the rules. And then from there, looking to the future, in the coming year, we may at that point choose to introduce some ideas that we have been kicking around as playtests. We may choose to do, limited interactions with them, for particular events. We may look at this and say, we've only had a year of working with these rules and we're not ready to add anything quite yet. But I imagine since we have a laundry list of things that we would love to see in the game that we'd love, our players to be able to enjoy, that we will, have something to see in the coming year as a playtest. But again, no major changes to the rules because we want everyone to be able to understand how the game is played and to feel comfortable with it before we start introducing new aspects to things. Does anyone have questions or concerns about that general philosophy? Or any of the owners have anything to add on this subject? I see a couple of hands up. TC, why don't you let someone speak?
Sorry, I believe I opened the floor to Evan.
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I had to unmute my mic just in case. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for hosting this. I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. So the idea isn't like that a 2-year cycle wouldn't be after 2 years you're going to overhaul things and change abilities and stuff. It's more like it's a check-in and making sure that everyone's having fun. There's no broken builds that are ruining other aspects of the game. It's not going to be an update where after 2 years you're going to say, okay, now we want to nix defender and we're going to put a new thing in that slot or anything like that. It's more
Correct.
Right.
Add addition.
For the most part,
Correct.
it'll be minor. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I don't need to be the only one talking. As a matter of fact, I would really prefer to not be the only one talking. So be my guest, TC.
Sure. So for the most part, it'll be minor changes. Anything that needs to be tweaked or isn't working the way we designed it to, or if something comes up where something has been working now and needs to be changed down the road in a major way, we will obviously fix that. But for the most part, the design of that 2-year mark is to be minor updates, fixes, and changes as needed. So it's not going to be anything like you have to completely learn a whole new rule set every 2 years. That's not the goal there.
I figured. I just wanted to make sure. Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, ideally, that 2-year cycle gives us time to continue to expand the game so that as players, continue to develop their characters, and we want, people to continue to have unique experiences with their characters. So that will give us the time to develop new systems, expanded crafting systems, add things to, add options to the game without immediately discovering that we've added 30 new things, and one, that's difficult for players, but two, half of them are broken.
Absolutely. One other question, so just so I can get my stuff out of the way and let everyone else go about theirs. Is there are there currently considerations for keeping an eye on not just builds that are overperforming, but builds that might be underperforming? Like if a specific tree of magic is being completely underutilized, or um, if a certain class combination is just underperforming. Is that something that is being looked at as well that you're going to keep an eye on? Or is it more in this first 2 years, more looking for outliers that go above and beyond?
Sure. So without putting Chris entirely on the spot, I think that, the benefit that we have from the online character system is that it's relatively easy for us to look at things and see what is overperforming, underperforming, and be able to make small tweaks. And while we have not, reached a point yet where we have sat down and gone, oh goodness, everyone is playing, you know, defender caster builds that only have healing, and we've got a bunch of unstoppable ambulances picking up all of our maintaining and picking up our glass cannons. We do have the ability to look at those things. And Chris, if you have anything you want to add on this about how we anticipate being able to not only see those sort of underperforming and overperforming situations, but thoughts on how we may in the future need to adjust them and how we can go about that, I think that would be helpful at this moment.
Yeah. Um, it is fairly easy. Spells are different, and there is a difficulty in measuring spells because the technology doesn't capture spells, given that memorization happens and can change over the course of an event. But obviously, we can tell what schools people are using as a hint. I think our primary mechanism and the easiest one to focus on is price of skills. Um, because it doesn't affect the balance really beyond just the ability to kind of limit stuff. And so I think that that's probably kind of our first line of defense, and the lever we want to tweak most if we find things over or underperforming is, a couple XP bump or drop. Generally, everything's pretty even right now. But I suspect, at the end of the year, at the end of the 2-year mark, taking a look at kind of why stuff was underused, and if we find the skill to kind of be in our acceptable range, given everything's kind of balanced in a way we're comfortable with, deploying those kind of changes first and foremost, to see if that has an effect.
Awesome. That answers all my questions. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, so Joe, you're up next.
With the sort of direction to keep a fairly stable rule system so people can get used to it, should we still expect to be able to rewrite after the 2-year cycle on this particular cycle? I know when we started the 2-year cycle, the rule book came out fairly close to the first event, and I know a lot of us were like, well, the sort of like party line was, hey, you've got a little bit of time, but it'll only be for 2 years because you're going to be able to rewrite. I'm just a little worried that since the rules aren't significantly changing, that we won't be doing a rewrite. And I don't know, that's my concern.
Sure. So broadly, the nice thing again about the game is that we do at this scale, and even if it were to scale up, have a fair amount of ability to impact those systems. Right now, one of the things that is in the rule book that wasn't clearly delineated before is, how that rewrite system can work in game. So there is some flexibility there, and to the extent that we saw a need to pull that lever so that there is more availability for it, we've got that ability. At the same time, we're also not looking to be dictators. So, if there is a situation where someone comes to us and says, "Hey, I came into this build looking at it, as something that made a lot of sense for me, but because of ABC, it no longer does," or this, you've made a big change, or you've made a change that dramatically impacts how I thought that build was going to play. We are not opposed to having a conversation that is, okay, you aren't getting what you wanted out of this experience. How can we help you out? Where can we make some changes? But we're not looking necessarily to have that rule cycle be tied to a rewrite every time. If we introduce a bunch of new crafting stuff, or another, some spells or things like that, we feel like there are enough systems in our game that if those changes trigger a desire to experience those new systems, players have ways of either, starting a character who can experience those things, or using the in-game systems. And to the extent, like I said, to the extent that there is a change that radically changes the way a player is able to interact with their character, we are open-minded and have, policy that will allow us to say, yep, we need to help this person out, because the goal of the game is not for us to lord over you all. It is a cooperative game. We want people to enjoy themselves. We're not going to, jerk them around just because something has changed and their experience is being impacted by that. To that extent, Joe, is there something where you would like to follow up with us separately, or where there's something that you think needs to be addressed?
No, I mean, that's not obviously not the answer I was looking for, but I don't want to do an argument in the town hall. So
Okay.
I think my concern is just mainly not about rules changing. It was just about, there was sort of a PR push from the ownership to say, like, hey guys, I know you've only had the rule book for 7 days. Please make a character so we can come to the event. Don't worry, it's only for 2 years. And if that changed, I would feel a negative emotion to that. But I don't want to, we can talk offline.
No, and I think that where you're coming from on this, Joe, is I appreciate, how you are framing it, where there was a bit of a mindset of, this is a short-term thing, and it would be nice to know that there's a way that this could be resolved. And I suspect that we can take this back, talk amongst ourselves, and perhaps follow up with you, and you may see something in the coming months that lets you say, oh, okay, I see how this is being addressed.
Great, thank you.
I have made a note. We will follow up on it. All right. Any of the other owners have anything they want to add to this conversation, or anyone else have questions that have been raised from this?
I think our guiding principle around not wanting to make it super easy to just rewrite your character stems more from around kind of some of the abuses we've seen with in other games, how easy it could be. And given that there's kind of there's like a handful of core roles, I would hate to see like somebody, what do we call it, rewrite history into like a diviner on a weekend, and take somebody's spot because they had the resources to do it. I think that's where our kind of defensiveness and resistance to making it super easy to constantly change your character. I think there's a lot of choices you make when you're building a character, and those choices are only important if there's some permanence to them. So, if you're not having fun, or you had a bad build, I think we're certainly open to making it so you can enjoy the game and be fun. But we kind of want to also protect that kind of abuse of changing a character too much, so that people don't feel like their roles are being upended by high level players with a lot of resources consistently.
All right. Well, keeping with the theme of new things, hopefully you have all seen that we are looking for some additional hands to help us out with things, and we're very thankful that we have a number of people who have opted to do that. Obviously, we are excited that we have another season of great plot coming from our two plot teams that are running right now, and we're very thankful for them. We are also very happy to announce that Phelan is going to be coming on board as a logistics liaison, handling those duties at events and helping out with crafting marshaling, which means that I don't have to do every single thing all at once, which is exciting for me. And it means that I can look at other things and help out with other things. Additionally, Claudia, who, if you've been at events, you've seen as an NPC, has expressed an interest in coming on board and helping out with some more of the administrative and operational issues. They, however, don't quite have the experience with the game that they would be comfortable stepping in as a general manager type role. So after some discussion with them, they're going to drop into sort of an assistant to the general manager role, so that they can learn some details, get some more experience with the game and the community, and then from there, as time goes on, perhaps take on more and more responsibility. Just because we have filled a couple of these roles doesn't mean that we would not be interested if there are people who are interested in continuing to get involved. This is a game that does rely on our community, and while we are excited about being involved in it, we all have our lives going on too. So it would help us out if our community, continues to be interested in stepping up and helping out. If you're interested in what some of those roles may be, you can check out the announcements channel, and we'll be happy to, talk to anyone about them. We continue to be grateful for everyone who volunteers. Bridget and others who have really gone above and beyond with respect to running the tavern on a regular basis, and knowing that we are being well fed and cared for is very nice. The people who are active in helping get things set up, broken down, the people who have regularly NPC'd for us, all of these roles are very important to the success of our game. And as we look to the future, it is definitely an area where, we know that part of our focus is on, so that we are ensuring that, not only does the game continue to run smoothly, but, to the extent there ever came a time where we couldn't continue to be involved in the same way we are, or where we needed to step back in one way or another, that there are people who are involved in the game that we can look to for continued support. Where when we start talking about what are the rules going to look like at the end of a 2-year cycle and things like that, that there are people that we can turn to engage in that conversation about. Because again, we aren't looking to rule this game. This is a collaborative situation where we want our players to have a voice in things. So to the extent that you are interested in that part of the game, fantastic. To the extent that you are interested and just don't have time right now, don't worry. We're always happy to accept help when you can help, or when you can do something to make our lives easier at an event. However you can be involved, that's what works for us. But please know that, we do need that continued involvement, and we appreciate it. Anyone have questions, concerns, things they want to add with respect to that? Fantastic. I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but we have also been talking to Ryan, who if you don't know Ryan, he is the player of Leaf, of getting more involved and starting to head up our community engagement. We want to make sure that we've had the opportunity to speak with him and walk through some of the responsibilities there before we put him on the spot. But we're very excited that, hopefully in the coming year, we will have the ability to have a few more monthly interactive things where even when we aren't at an event, we can continue to stay excited about things. Excellent. Well, next up on my my agenda is once again touching base on the fact that we do have a schedule posted, and we're excited about it. Our first event is coming up, quicker than you may have thought. It is about a month away at the end of March. March 23rd. It's going to be a one-day event. We're going to be it's going to be taking place over in it's not Proud Lake. It is the Cedar Ridge shelter in the Huron Meadows Metro Park. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Metro Park systems, this is one of the Metro Parks that is located south of Brighton and just off of US 23. I'm sorry, M23. Great park, a little bit isolated from everything, much like the sites that we've tried to use when we do one days in parks. We are looking forward to these one-day events because it gives us an opportunity to have those interactions during a time when we just don't have the access to campsites. Unfortunately, many of the sites in Michigan, because of the weather, choose not to winterize, and so our options as it gets colder become more and more limited. We are continuing to search so that in the next year or so, we have more weekend events and less one-day events. But for those who aren't familiar with the reasons why we tend to have, or why we have now drifted to a series of one-day events, it is worth noting that one of the issues that has arisen with most camps, or a large number of camps in Michigan, is a transition from a flat fee for weekend or flat fee for day pricing system to a pricing per head system, where the campsites will say, we have 10 cabins. In order to reserve all 10 cabins, you need to have X number of people, and you are paying per person who is on site. That poses a bit of a challenge for our historical pricing model, where we don't want to have our NPCs having to pay to be there. So even when the pricing model is set up so that it is not an unreasonable price per head, if we have a portion of our attending player base who we don't want to charge for events, it means that the prices need to go up for other players. And at the same time, we are in a place where, as we look at our pricing model, we have really done everything we can for really the better part of 30 years to limit price increases. When, we started LARPing, when I say we, I mean Chad, Travis, and I know TC and Chris were shortly thereafter, event prices were running in the $50 to $60 range. And we have done all we can up till this point to maintain that price point. Some of you who may have looked at the pricing that is on the event schedule will note that those prices have gone up somewhat this year. And the reason for that really is that we are making sure that when we are having weekend events and we have a number of NPCs, we are able to ensure that we are able to pay for those weekend events because we have to do so. So now our event cost is a flat $40 per day cost. So one days are $40, weekend events are $80, and unfortunately that is pre-food. But again, these prices are designed basically so we're staying close to break even, where we are coming out ahead. That's where money is going back in to pay for props and repairing weapons and the registration on the trailer and insurance, because we have to maintain our liability insurance every year. In the time that we have been running this game, very rarely have we been what I would say is profitable, and we have never been what I would deem getting rich. No one is coming to us offering us millions of dollars for our game, and we don't really have any interest in that situation. We want to make sure that we're running the best game we can at what is a reasonable price for the value that you're getting. If we can find ways to do that more efficiently, great. That's where we love the fact that our community has been so good about volunteering and helping us out with things, where you've been able to contribute time to repair weapons, supplies, things like that, that help us, that make running this game that much easier. Does anyone have questions about the finances? We're happy to crack open, to at least metaphorically crack open the books. Well, all right. Hopefully your silence means that you trust that we really are looking out for things, and that we're not going to retire on the backs of those big LARP dollars. All right.
The joke made me sad. The laughter made me sadder.
Sorry.
Look, let's be clear. We do this because we love the game. We love the opportunities that LARPing has given us. We have been fortunate enough to, know each other as far as the five of us go for the better part of 20 plus years. Although if you ask Chris has known us all since high school. And because of this, we have had this opportunity because of LARPing, and I can't imagine having the opportunity to do this with a group of people that I am more happy to be working with. So thank you all, and thank you to the community who continues to give us the opportunity to make that happen. All right, jumping back to the calendar, are there any questions or concerns about the event scheduling or anything like that? Where there are one days, where there are not one days, how we plan to do things? All right. Well, in that case, other questions and concerns that have come out to us over the off season. One of the biggest concerns we have had is deals with our treasure system, and this is one of those areas where in the game, there's a fair amount of behind the scenes. Oh, I'm sorry. I just realized Brooks is asking to speak. So go ahead, Brooks.
Sorry. Oh, I invited him, but it went away. Hold on. I'll try again. There we go. Okay.
All right, there we go. Sorry. Quick question on the 1 days. Are they going to be
Yes.
in locations that have water and a bathroom, or not?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I have
Um,
always been careful to make sure that we have water, as much access to the same types of facilities as possible.
Okay, that's fine.
I
Because if
will
not,
double
like,
check and confirm.
if
But
not, let
yes,
me know, because I have ability to help out in that aspect. So,
have you
like
taken
with
up housing?
no, like one of those portable sinks.
Oh,
So-
okay. Perfect.
So,
Thank you very much.
Yep. All right.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brooks. All right, go ahead, Matt. You were talking about the treasure.
Sure. So one of the concerns that has come up most frequently, both from the players and operations side, is,
1
oh
second,
my
Matt.
God,
Do
treasure.
you want to take Ryan's question, or do you want to wait for a moment?
We can take Ryan's question. I didn't see that Ryan had a question. Fire away.
Ryan, you have the floor.
No sound.
Oh, we can hear you now.
No, that's me.
Oh,
I'm telling Ryan that we can't hear him, so if he's speaking, he got muted or something else is preventing him.
I see. Well, I can flip back to the chat and see that Ryan was asking earlier about which what is the breakdown between the two campaigns. And I don't have it sitting right in front of me, so I'm hoping that one of my fellow owners has their notes in front of them, because I don't recall. Or if
yeah, why don't we put it to
we can, yeah.
Balin and Matt? So I'm going to give the floor to Balin.
Hi, everybody. So, from what I'm given to understand, and let me know if this is incorrect, but from my current notes, the first 3 events, the March 1 day, the April 1 day, and the May 1 day, are going to be Calinthus campaign. The June 1 day, the July 1 day, and the August weekend event are going to be Waller's campaign. And then I believe August is Calinthus again, and then September is first September event is Waller's campaign again. But I may have gotten those mixed up. Let me double check my notes here. Yes. First 2 1 days and first weekend, Calinthus. Listrin for the next 2 1 days and weekend. Calinthus again for the first weekend in September. Listrin again for the second event in September. And those were the ones that were determined, at least by my notes.
Yes, that matches what I was able to dig up as you were talking. So
Excellent.
Right. The last one day I have volunteered to run, possibly. We will see. Chad has been poo-pooing my idea. All right.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a very fun idea. I don't think
I'm
anyone else I don't think anyone will be miserable.
I just want to say before I punt those kids back is if Ryan, if you were having more questions about like campaign specifics, that's more of a not a question for town hall. If you want to go into like questions about the worlds in general, maybe a message in the like the text channels. Does that make sense? Okay. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
All right. So it looks like that addressed Ryan, and it looks like Phelan is there with them with Ryan. So we're getting both of their chats jointly. All right. So going back to the subject that I had touched on was treasure, because there have been players who have come to us and said, "Hey, this treasure system that you put together is amazing and deep and fascinating, and we love it. But when do we get treasure, and how much treasure are we supposed to be getting, and have we gotten all the treasure that we're supposed to be getting?" And we've had plot people come to us saying, "What is this bucket of treasure that you've given us, and how do we give it out, in a efficient manner?" And so we have been working on this over the course of the off season. And again, at the risk of putting him on the spot, Chad has been developing a system that I believe he is very excited about. Chad, would you mind speaking and sharing a bit about how we plan to have this going forward?
Yeah, sure, Matt. This isn't. It is a little premature because I haven't really run it through um, the owner collective on exactly how it's going to be done. But the primary problems that I'm aiming to solve, and that we're all aiming to solve with this, is um, basically we give out treasure. Treasure at the end is designed to solve other kind of social problems that have occurred in the past and in other LARPs that we have all played. But treasure at the end comes with certain problems in that it's kind of boring to split up, and trying to figure out how to split it up in some cases can be really difficult, especially when you have kind of what we've aimed for here is a deep economic system, and values can be a little bit difficult to kind of they kind of float. It's kind of like we're going for something that's a little bit more prescriptive from the player on how valuable things are. So how do you give an even split? And these are some of the things that have been brought up, as well as from the plot side to Matt. What Matt was saying is, it's a bucket of paper, and how are we supposed to give it out efficiently? It typically isn't a fun thing for plot to be doing, is to be giving out treasure or trying to figure out ways to give out treasure. They're trying to tell a story. So these are the problems I'm aiming at solving, and what it's going to come down to, I think, unless there's real good reasons not to do it, is some kind of a share system, where we're going to, instead of putting together giving raw tags to the plot team, we're going to put together prescriptive shares that are larger chunks. And when players go on a given encounter, a number of shares that is equal to, in some way, the players that are there. So it'll be a 1 share thing, or a 2 share thing, or a 3 share thing. And then the only other piece that's attached to that is there is going to be some amount of randomness within a share. So every share will have a base value that is always true, and then there will be something additional added to a share, and that's how we're going to add in twos, quality 2 items, quality 3 materials, and as well as craftable items that have a compound value. Again, this is a high level view of this thing, and it hasn't been approved yet, so I don't want to go into too much too many conversations about it right now because it's already got to go through review once. I just wanted to kind of tease that something's happening and there is motion being made on this, and hopefully this will solve some problems for people while um, making it so that this doesn't turn into a game of Frogger.
Thank you, Chad. And to be clear, this is a system that as owners, we are open to people who want to volunteer and help us with ideas. You know, none of us are economists. None of us are math majors, experts in social policy or things like that. So to the extent that someone is looking at this and saying, "Hey, you guys are making your lives way too difficult," we're happy to have you speak up, and we would be glad to listen to you, give you credit for the assistance that you are providing to us, and to the extent that you want to be involved, get you more involved in this process. Let's see. It looks like Evan has something that he'd like to add. Give me just a second here. All right. There you go, Evan. Evan, if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
Gosh darn it. I muted again. Okay. Then again. I'm not gonna ask any specific questions about the system because obviously you're not taking any. The thing I'm wondering is the main problem you're coming across with loot from feedback that the economic, like the shifting economic value is a problem, or that the giving it out from a plot side is the main problem?
Well, I think the primary
Like
problem
this
that's been primary problem that's been expressed to us from a player, it's two different problems. I think that the plot side of the problem is really simply solved, frankly. Give out a handful of treasure, or pick your handfuls and put them into boxes ahead of time and give out and pull a box. That's not as hard as the problem that the players are facing. But the idea is to tackle both. And the shifting economic, one material is obviously worth one material. What is the value of a quality 3 versus a quality 1? And the fact of the matter is that is going to shift. So it is difficult to, we've shied away from talking about it, primarily because it's going to shift. So we don't want to set a value for a thing and then have that taint the water of what will happen to the economy.
And
and
to
that's
that
kind of
point,
the issue there.
yeah, and to that point, that's our goal. We don't want to be in a situation where everything is worth X copper, or X quality 1 things. We want there to be a cooperative system where you may need a quality 3 of something and someone else has it, and they are the one, that is what is setting this market price. And maybe most of the time a quality 3 material is worth 10 quality 1s, but in this particular case you really want it, and now we have somewhat real economic supply and demand situations. We've moved away from systems that allow the easy manipulation of material types, because it simply was becoming, oh, we need a quality 3 item. Well, all we need to have a quality 3 item is so many quality 1 materials that are going to get alchemied up or transmuted up into this, and it doesn't matter what we found. And so that we want these things to have a consequence and a purpose. So we aren't looking to get rid of this system, but we are looking to make sure that we're removing the less fun aspects of some of this stuff. So if you want to be a player who engages in uh, collecting and having rarefied materials so that when someone needs them, you can do that and you can focus on it. If you want to be the sort of player who just has a bunch of quality one materials and when you need something more, that's when you start looking for them, you can do that. But we want to make sure that we're cutting out a layer of the dreaded layer of I've got to split treasure. And now, yes, that time is useful because it is time that people are resting and getting back skills. But as one of the people who regularly gets stuck splitting up treasure, it's not the most fun. There's nothing exciting about it. So we're looking to try to balance some of those factors out.
Absolutely. I just a personal feedback. I do love the idea of there being like just lots and just not having to split it all. Just being like, oh, if like 5 people went on this thing and there are 5 bags of treasure and you just open one and there's no hard feelings. I like that idea a lot. That was something I think that Chad just briefly glanced over, but that
Something similar to that is a system that we are looking to engage in.
yeah,
I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
mean,
that it's going to be
that is the high
entirely
level.
that.
That's the high level of what I'm proposing.
yeah, I
Yep.
like that idea a lot, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, thank you for answering the question.
Then it just becomes a matter of implementing that in a way that's easy for the logistics people and the plot people to put forward. So,
Cool, thank you.
all right. Well, good. Well, that was the only question that was put to us in advance of this. We've touched on the schedule. We've broken down 1 days and who and what campaigns are going to be there. We've touched on staff things and our reasonings for the rule book. I'll now open the floor if there are other questions, concerns, things for the good of the order. General announcements that people want to make, unless your announcement is, hey, we started this new LARP that's going to compete with you. You should all come play our other game. All right. Well, we appreciate everyone taking time out of their Saturday evening for this. Because I
Oh,
am
wait,
currently...
hold on. Evan has
Oh.
a question. 1 second.
I hate to be that guy. I'm sorry. I don't want to push this past. I had just one more question on the topic of anything else, like nothing's that's been touched upon so far.
Sure.
Is there currently, or is there any plan to look at a system that would allow new players to try out a preset build or something they could come in and be like, I'm not playing a PC yet, like, because I don't want to make a character, I don't want to like play from the level 1 up and stuff, but I want to try out your system at like a medium level, like 100 build or something. So like a character that doesn't gain experience per se, but that can just say, oh, I want to try out your game. This is like a set build that you can have to play around with, and this character is just going to be like a go in, go out kind of thing, like a testing trial. Is that something that you guys have thought about or maybe considered
So,
putting in?
yeah. So we really haven't, and we haven't... There's a couple of issues that you're kind of touching on there. And where you say someone coming in at kind of a medium character, part of the issue of that would be if you don't have experience with a LARP. We feel we've developed a system that is somewhat new player friendly in the sense that you start and you have a certain number of things and you get them back relatively quickly, and it's easy to remember what that is. And as you play that character, it builds. We've also tried to put together a system where if you want to see more things, NPCing is a pretty good option for that, because while you may not get the feel for the skill system, because we've done our best to make the overarching effect system user friendly and approachable, in the course of a weekend, if you're NPCing or if you're just doing an NPC shift in the course of a weekend, you have the opportunity to engage in the system in a way that gives you exposure. And you could say at the end of an NPC shift, well, I really like playing this character. I really liked having these abilities. How can I build into them? And as an extension of that, one of the ideas that we are in the coming, near future looking to implement, and this is something that has its roots really in the start of the impetus of the rule system, is the idea of somewhat character archetypes, where there would be the ability for a new player to select an archetype where they said, for example, I want to be a war wizard, and the system then will spend their XP in chunks towards that goal. So as they start off, they don't have to overthink the rule system. They know that they can select war wizard, and they'll end up with a starting batch of skills that get them there. And then as they go on between, for example, start and 150 EXP, they can choose just to keep following down that path and not have to overthink this, so that they get to that place of well-developed character without having to overdo it. And War Wizard, of course, is just one sample there. It could be you know uh armored healer, it could be defender, it could be one of the ideas that Chris put forward is sort of archetypes based upon NPCs. So as you have encountered people, you can say, oh, I think that the way that the king seems to play is interesting, and there will be a noble warrior archetype that mixes the skills in a way that gets you some fighting and some social skills, things like that. The other side of that coin is, as we touched on, sort of at the beginning with Joe's question, to the extent that someone comes in and has a miserable time with they start down a path and thinking, oh, this is the character I want to play, we are open to the a petitioned rewrite where someone says, hey, I thought that this was going to be a great exciting way to play this character. I'm finding that as I delve deeper into the skills, this really I'm not getting out of this what I had hoped to. And then we can work with them to modify some portion of what they're doing. It might not be a full rewrite, but someone says, oh, I thought that the spellcasting part was going to be better, or I thought that I was really going to like the flexibility of some rogue stuff, and it just isn't working. So we're open to the idea of that flexibility. But what you're asking for, where effectively you're saying, well, can someone come in and play a mid-level NPC to start, just doesn't really fit with any system that we have in place, nor one that would be easy to implement. Because and just off the top of my head, a big issue would be someone comes in, has a really good time, plays this character, and is like, oh, I really enjoyed doing that. I want to keep playing this type of character. And then we turn around and say, great, now you're going to play the same character with, 1/3 of the build, 1/10 of the build, etc. It doesn't provide for a good experience on that end, and having a mid-level character as your starting point really doesn't provide you with a good foundation for understanding how to, grow into the game. So that is a very long-winded way of saying, no, we have not thought of this. It's something that I certainly would be willing to consider if you had a sort of fleshed out proposal that we could look at and think to maybe bring into the game in the future. But it's not something that I would expect us to have, in any time in the near future, as something that drives things along. I think we try to do our best by giving new players the opportunity to play for free at the start, to be flexible with them about, developing those character concepts and giving opportunities. But I can't see a way that we easily integrate, a mid-level one-off NPC situation so that someone could dip their toes in the water. I suppose the other side of that coin. Oh, Chris, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, I mean, this already exists as the character transfer policy. If you're not new to LARPing, you can take a 150 XP character to transfer in, which is a mid-level character, and play that as your starting point. And if you're brand new to LARPing, then probably starting at 150 XP is just over your head and not a great starting place. And so, I mean, we do this already.
Yeah, I mean that was exactly what I was about to say. Is if you are someone who has played other LARPs before, all you really have to say is, look, here, I've played other LARPs before. Here's a character card from that, and we're happy to start you off with that more experienced character, so that you can see what this is going to be. And ideally, you can bring your character from that other LARP and have it, be part of Convergence. One of the sort of behind the scenes aspects of the game, if it hasn't been clear, is our world is a place where various worlds are colliding. And if it means that your friend's character who's only played DR wants to come play, wants to make an appearance in our world, yeah, they're probably going to have to tweak some things to fit within our rule set, but they can likely put together a character that is an extension of that Dystopia Rising character, at least in personality and play style, and play it here. So it gives them that opportunity. So
Yeah,
I hope that addresses your question.
It does. It does. I just wanted to ask. This wasn't like an official request for this to be added, or if it wasn't already there. I just wanted to like raise that as something that like, oh, this is something I would like to see eventually. But
Sure.
the transfer system does alleviate most of that for people who aren't starting out. Pretty much all of it for
Yeah.
people who aren't starting out. I think it's
And
more for the initial question was more about like the people who haven't played before, who um in the past may have not stiffed their nose up at the idea, but I've had situations where people have said no to like starting off because they didn't want to be weak, like that weak at the beginning
sure.
when they're just trying to figure out the system. That's
And
it's
and I think,
Well,
yeah, no, that's very understandable where you're coming from in it. And I guess one of the things that we have looked to do is make our new starting character level high enough that fairly quickly that is a character who can do a fair amount. And the simple reality is we've built a system that higher level characters can do things more often, but usually, at least as we have intended it to be, that simply means they can go and maybe do a couple things without needing as much rest. But the newer players are probably in a very short time going to be able to recover all of their skills and be able to head back out fully fleshed out. So we're working to balance that and improve it if as it may need to be improved. But I think those are kind of the levers that we're pulling when it comes to this issue. But I understand what you're saying, where there are people who say, oh, I'm not really interested in being a new character. And I guess all I can really say to that is we all got to start somewhere, sometime. And if you're not interested in learning a game from the ground up, then maybe we're not quite the right game for you to be playing. But I know
think
that's
that
not
was
what
less
you
of
are saying.
yeah, it was less of I don't ever want to be like I don't want to build my way from the ground up. It's more like, oh, I want to try this game out, but I want to see what it's going to be like for if I was to
Yeah,
invest in playing for a long time. The difference between playing at 25 build versus playing at 150 build, which is I would say you're going to be in the 100 to 200 range for quite like the 150 to 250 range is like a majority of the playtime for a lot of people, at least like in like the medium years. That is kind of like
sure.
the experience that you would be expecting to play for a much longer time versus the current system allows you to get from 1 to 100 in like less than a year if you're doing Goblin Blanket,
Sure.
I think.
And again,
That's yeah.
it's always a balance. So we appreciate your feedback
Yeah,
on it, but I just
absolutely.
don't foresee it being something that happens in the near future. But and we're gonna drop you back into the audience. But
Oh yeah.
I will say, this is something where we are always happy to think about these ideas. And Evan kind of touched on it. He said this wasn't an official proposal or a request. Sort of like when we make changes to the rules, we're not terribly interested in someone saying, I don't like this change because it cuts the legs out from the power fantasy that I've built. Generally, if we're going to do that, it's because the outcome is unbalanced, and we're not looking for one person to have a ton of fun while everyone else is miserable. But we are happy to take ideas into consideration, and more fully fleshed out ideas are great. As we look towards that second year of our rule cycle where there are things to play test, we welcome the players to come forth with ideas and say, look, here is a semi fleshed out, a rough draft, an idea of something I'd like to see in the game. And we're happy to work with you to develop that into a proposal that we can test. It doesn't mean it's going to get into the game. You may put a lot of work into it, and at the end of the day, we all come to the conclusion, hey, this isn't going to fly for what we need in this game because we can't balance it, because it is something that is too primary character, or it's not something that's repeatable because it requires us to invent something for each individual character. But we welcome the ideas into the fold. So if you have ideas like this as time goes on, please put together a small proposal, reach out to us, let us know, and we'll be happy to take those ideas into account. All right. Well, with that in mind, let's see. Could we post a campaign breakdown somewhere for future reference? Yes, I will update the events once I have a working computer, or someone can update the events so that they do list which campaigns are which. And And I think with that, that about brings this town hall to a close. I was planning on running games, but since I don't have a up and running computer and I'm working from my phone, I can't do that. I don't know if someone else is interested in taking that over and moving out to one of the other voice channels to do that. I apologize. Once I get this up and running, I promise I'll reschedule something so that we can have another get together to hang out and try to have some fun together. So thank you all for coming. Rest of the owners, if you have anything to add now, please feel free.
Thanks, everybody. Looking forward to this year.
Yeah, we appreciate all of you coming.
And I suppose unless anyone else has any last words, have a good evening and we will see you all soon, I hope.
Night, everyone.
Bye.